Welcome back, everyone. Before we dive in, be sure to drop your thoughts, feelings, and lessons in the comments below. Like the video and subscribe so you never miss stories like this. Let's get into it. The cruelest thing Zaria Lennox ever did was lift her champagne at a packed, candlelit table in Silver Spring, Maryland, smile like she was doing me a favor, and announce, "Don't mind Kaimani. He's sweet, but he's classless." Then she laughed, soft, controlled, so her family and friends could laugh with her. My throat tightened, but my face didn't move. I didn't argue. I didn't plead. I reached into my jacket, placed the ring box on the white tablecloth beside her water glass, slid it toward her like a final receipt, and stood up. Here's how it happened. My name is Kaimani Rowe. I'm a programmer. Quiet confidence, calm habits, and a mind that sees patterns before people realize they're repeating. I don't show emotion. I don't beg for respect. I work, I listen, I observe, and when something isn't right, I don't announce it, I adjust. That's why the early days with Zaria felt like a miracle. She was magnetic in public, charming, witty, glowing like a room should be lucky to have her. She called herself an entrepreneur with the kind of certainty that made people lean in. And when she chose me, she made it feel like a prize. We met at a rooftop game night in Washington, D.C. Warm breeze, string lights, music low enough to talk over. I showed up in a clean hoodie and crisp sneakers, holding a bottle of ginger ale. Zaria looked me up and down like she was amused by me, then smiled like she'd already decided I was hers. "You don't drink?" she asked, laughing. I said I do, just not in rooms where people are already making bad decisions. She laughed so hard she grabbed my arm and said, "Okay, Code Man, you're annoying." And for the first time in a long time, I felt chosen for something real. Those months were light, funny, warm. We'd do late-night Waffle House runs in College Park, and she'd narrate the whole menu like she was hosting a show. "Look at this. Hash brown scattered, smother covered. This is art." I'd tease her about her dramatic delivery, and she'd shove my shoulder, smiling. She'd steal fries off my plate and pretend she didn't. I'd catch her hand, and she'd whisper, "You see everything." I did. But back then, what I saw made me feel safe, like she was bright in a way that wasn't dangerous. She had big plans and big energy. Zaria ran a small lifestyle brand, candles, self-care kits, pop-up events. She talked about growth like it was guaranteed. "I'm building an empire," she'd say, leaning over my laptop as I worked. Everybody's going to know my name. I liked her ambition. I liked how alive she was. When she was stressed, she'd call and say, "Talk to me, Codeman, make my brain quiet." I'd tell her random facts or make terrible jokes until she laughed. Then she'd soften and say, "I don't know why you calm me down, but you do." The first crack was small enough to ignore. A Sunday brunch in Hyattsville with her friends. Someone asked what I did, and before I could answer, Zaria waved her fork and said, "He types all day, like for money." Her friends laughed politely. I smiled and said, "Software engineer. I build systems." Zaria grinned like she'd caught me trying too hard. "See," she said, "he always tries to make it sound fancy." It was said like a joke, but it landed like a label. You're not impressive. You just dress it up. In the car, I kept my voice even. I didn't love that. Zaria stared out the window, bored. "Oh my God, you're so sensitive." It was a joke. Man up. I watched her say it like it was nothing. No apology. No curiosity about how it felt. Just a quick dismissal and a demand that I swallow it. I let it go once. I told myself she was joking, that everyone teases, that she didn't mean harm. But my mind filed it away like a note in a system log. Pattern detected. The romantic parts stayed strong at first, which made the disrespect confusing. We'd dance in my kitchen in Tacoma Park while rice cooked, and she tried to sing old R&B like she invented it. She'd put my hands on her waist and say, "You're too serious. Loosen up." I'd laugh and tell her, "I'm perfectly loose." She'd roll her eyes and say, "Lies." Then she'd kiss me and whisper, "I like you the most when you're quiet." I didn't realize that sentence had two meanings, one sweet, one controlling, until later. When she asked me to build a simple prototype app for her brand, nothing huge, just a clean demo for investors, I did it because I loved her and because I'm good at what I do. Zaria sat beside me, pretending to understand my screen. "So you're basically hacking the internet," she said. No, I replied, smiling. I'm building a login page. She kissed my cheek and called me her genius. I set up the project under accounts I controlled, not because I didn't trust her, because paperwork matters, and I liked clean ownership. She kept saying she'd get to it when I asked about agreements. The next trigger showed up wearing insecurity. Zarya started playing with my phone. At first, it was childish, snatching it while I washed dishes and running away giggling. Then one night, she sat on my couch in Tacoma Park, my phone in both hands, eyebrows tight. "Who is T?" she asked. "Trey, my co-worker." She scrolled like she didn't believe me. "Why is he texting you at 9:47? I said, "Because we're deploying tomorrow." Zarya leaned back, voice sweet but sharp. "That's how men cheat, Kaimani. They hide behind work." I blinked. "You don't have proof of anything." She shrugged. "I don't need proof. I have intuition." When I asked her to stop going through my phone, she got offended like I'd accused her. "So now I'm the villain for protecting myself?" She snapped. "If you have nothing to hide, why are you acting guilty?" It wasn't a question. It was a trap. Either I gave up privacy or I looked suspicious. I kept my voice calm. "I'm not guilty. I'm just not handing you control." She stared at me like I'd failed a test I didn't know existed. She started criticizing my job in a new way. Less playful, more dismissive. If I talked about certifications or leadership tracks, she'd wave her hand like she was brushing dust off a table. "That corporate ladder thing is cute," she said one night. "But you're still working for someone. I need a man with vision." I asked, "What's your vision for you?" She smiled like she was teaching me. "Freedom, power, ownership, not begging for a raise." The irony was she'd never built anything that didn't depend on someone else's money, time, or patience. But she talked like she was already a mogul. We got engaged because I believed in the best version of her. I proposed on a quiet walk near the waterfront in National Harbor, the air cold enough to make her laugh at how my hand shook. She said yes fast, almost too fast, and posted a photo that night with captions about alignment and elevating. For a week, she treated me like her favorite person again. Then the tone shifted, subtle at first. She started correcting me in front of people. "That's not how you say it," she'd cut in. "No, that's not what he means." If I looked confused, she'd squeeze my knee under the table to be quiet. Her family became part of the disrespect. At dinners in Bowie, her mother, Imani Lennox, asked questions like she was evaluating a candidate. "So what's your 5-year plan?" she'd say. Before I could speak, Zarya answered for me. "He's thinking about it," she'd say, smiling. "He's cautious." Cautious sounded cowardly when she said it. Her brother, DeAndre, would smirk and add, "Cautious means broke." I'd keep my face neutral and respond with facts, not emotion. Zarya would laugh like she enjoyed the little pile-on. The funniest part, if I'm being honest, is how she still expected me to carry everything while she questioned my worth. We'd be in Target or Home Goods, and she'd toss things into the cart without looking at prices. "Office decor," she'd say. "Packaging supplies. A new chair." She'd glance at me and ask, "You got it, right?" If I hesitated, her voice turned sugary and cold. "Babe, don't be stingy. A real man provides." When I said I was budgeting, she rolled her eyes. "Budgeting is what people do when they don't make enough." I tried direct communication calmly. "It's not the money. It's disrespectful." She laughed like I told a joke. "You always make things deep." Then she hit me with the classic. "Man up. You're too sensitive." I watched how her apologies never arrived. If she was wrong, she acted like being wrong was beneath her. If I said I felt hurt, she treated it like weakness. And when I asked for basic kindness, she reframed it like I was asking for something unreasonable. The more composed I stayed, the more she pushed, like she wanted proof I could be shaken. The phone accusations got worse. She started inventing stories out of thin air. A female colleague added a reaction to a group chat. Zarya's eyes narrowed. "Who is that? A coworker emailed me late? So she thinks she can access you after hours?" I'd explain calmly, and Zarya would sigh dramatically. "Men lie so easily," she'd say, like she'd already decided I was guilty. One night she said, "I could replace you in a week if I wanted." I looked at her and answered quietly, "Then why are you here?" She blinked, annoyed, like she didn't expect me to question her power play. The disrespect started showing up in public more often. At an event in Arlington, Zarya introduced me to someone and said, "This is Kaimani. He's stable." The way she said stable sounded boring. Like safe. Like small. I smiled and shook the person's hand. In the car, I said, "That didn't feel good." Zarya exhaled sharply. "Oh my God, you want to be offended so bad." I said something nice. Then she added, "You're lucky I even brought you around. Some men don't know how to act around money." That line lodged in my chest. Because it wasn't about money. It was about control. Here's the part people don't understand. I wasn't afraid of losing her. I was afraid of losing myself trying to keep her. That's why I stopped reacting emotionally. Not to punish her, to protect me. I began watching our interactions like I watched a system under stress. Input, output, repeated error. I noticed she used the same moves. Insult, laugh, dismiss, threaten, then act shocked if I pulled back. I started setting boundaries quietly. I stopped paying for extras. I stopped sharing my full schedule. I stopped explaining myself to someone committed to misunderstanding me. Zarya called my calm cold. She started complaining to her friends about how I shut down. I heard it at a small dinner in Alexandria when she thought I couldn't. "He acts like a robot," she laughed. "He thinks typing all day makes him emotionally intelligent." Her friend Janelle giggled and said, "You need a man with fire." Zarya nodded like she agreed. I listened, chewed my food, and stayed quiet. Later Zarya said, "See, you don't even defend yourself. That's why people don't respect you." I looked at her. "People who respect me don't require performance," I said. She rolled her eyes. We had good moments still, which is why I stayed longer than I should have. There were nights she curled into me on the couch, soft and sweet, and said, "I'm scared I'm not enough." I'd reassure her, and she'd kiss my cheek. She'd send me videos about relationship goals and say, "That's us." Then the next day, if she was stressed, she'd snap and call me names like they were normal. "You're pathetic," she said once because I didn't want to argue in public. And when I stared at her, she shrugged. "I'm just honest." Honesty wasn't her problem. Cruelty was. The ring changed her. It gave her a sense of ownership over me that she didn't earn. She started saying things like, "When we're married, you're not going anywhere without telling me." I answered calmly, "That's not marriage. That's supervision." She laughed. "You see, you always want to debate. Just do what you're supposed to do." Her favorite phrase became, "A man should. A man should pay. A man should lead. A man should take it. A man should handle disrespect without feeling disrespected." And anytime I asked what she thought a woman should do, she'd say, "I'm not doing gender roles. I'm getting results." The business prototype became another lever. Zarya started acting like my skills belonged to her brand. She'd say things like, "My app," when she meant the app one built. She'd correct people. "We built it," she'd say, but her eyes would slide away from me like she didn't want anyone noticing my role. When I brought up ownership documents again, she frowned. "Why are you being so transactional?" she asked. "We're about to be married." I said, "That's exactly why it should be clean." She scoffed. "You don't trust me." I answered, "Trust isn't the opposite of clarity." She didn't like that. One night in my apartment, she went through my laptop bag and pulled out a notebook where I'd written down goals and timelines. She held it up like evidence. "What is this?" she demanded. "Planning," I said. She flipped pages. "Why didn't you tell me you're applying for a new position?" I looked at her. "Because you turn everything into a fight." She threw the notebook on the couch. "So you're sneaking now." I kept my tone steady. "I'm protecting my peace." Zarya stared, then smiled like she'd found a new strategy. "I can do better than you, Kaimani," she said like a promise. When she was wrong, she never apologized. She rewrote history. If she insulted me, it became a joke. If she crossed a boundary, it became your insecurity. If she threatened to leave, it became motivation. And when I refused to argue, she accused me of not caring. I started answering her with calm truth. "I care. I just won't beg." That made her angry because begging would have confirmed her power. The more stable I stayed, the more she escalated, like she needed a louder reaction to reassure herself that she could still move me. The night of the restaurant came after weeks of tension. Zarya wanted a celebration dinner because she had a pitch coming up with a small investment group. She invited her family and friends like it was a performance. Or something nice, she told me. This matters. I wore a clean dark jacket, simple watch, neat shoes, nothing loud. Zarya arrived in a sharp dress, hair flawless, smile polished. In the car she said, "Please don't embarrass me." I looked at her. "I've never embarrassed you." She replied, "Exactly. Keep it that way." The restaurant was dim and expensive, full of soft laughter and clinking glasses. Her people filled the table like a panel. Imani at the head, DeAndre beside her, cousins and friends spread out, Janelle across from me with a smirk that never left. Zarya introduced everyone, shining. When it was my turn, she said, "This is Kaimani. He's in tech. Not my fiancé. Not the man I love. Just a category. Like I was a tool." Then DeAndre looked at my plate and said, "You eating that? You sure you can pronounce it?" Laughter. Zarya laughed too. I smiled lightly and kept eating. Zarya leaned close and whispered, "Relax. They're just playing." Then, when the conversation moved to business and money, someone asked me what I thought about investments. I began explaining calmly, diversifying, planning, not overextending. Zarya cut in mid-sentence with a bright laugh. "He's so cautious," she announced. "That's why I have to push him." Then she turned to the table and delivered the line like she practiced it. "Don't mind him. He's sweet, but he's classless." And she laughed like she'd just told the best joke of the year. The table responded like she expected. Janelle snorted. DeAndre shook his head. Someone murmured, "She's keeping you honest." Imani gave a satisfied look like her daughter had confirmed what she already believed. I looked at Zarya's face, perfect smile, eyes glittering, not a hint of regret, and I felt something click into place. Not heartbreak, clarity. I realized she didn't want a partnership. She wanted an audience and a servant. She wanted someone to finance her image and absorb her disrespect without consequence. At that moment, I didn't feel anger. I felt finished. I reached into my jacket. The ring box was smooth in my palm, like it had been waiting. I placed it on the table beside her glass, slid it toward her slowly, and stood up. Zarya's smile froze. "Kim, what are you doing?" she whispered, still trying to keep the room from noticing. I looked at her, then at the table. My voice stayed calm, clear. "You're right," I said. "I don't belong at this table." Then I turned and walked out. No shouting, no insults, just an exit that spoke louder than any speech. Outside, the air felt cold and clean. The parking lot lights buzzed faintly. I sat in my car and stared at my hands on the steering wheel until the shaking passed. I didn't cry. I didn't rant. I just breathed like someone who'd been underwater too long and finally surfaced. My phone vibrated once, then again, then again. Zarya, Zarya, Zarya. I let it ring. Not out of spite, out of discipline. I drove home, took off my jacket, folded it neatly, and put it away like I was closing a chapter with clean edges. By morning, the calls turned into texts. "Zarya, you embarrass me. Zarya, you're really going to ruin everything over a joke? Zarya, answer me. Zarya, my pitch is in 2 days." That last line told me more than her whole speech at the table. Not "I'm sorry." Not "I hurt you." Not "I crossed a line." Just panic about her outcome. She didn't miss me. She missed control. I replied with one sentence. "Don't contact me unless it's about returning my things." She didn't respond to that. She called again. That afternoon, she showed up at my place in Tacoma Park like she owned the door. I opened it and stood in the doorway. Zarya's eyes were glossy, hair perfect, voice soft like she was auditioning for forgiveness. "Please," she said. "I didn't mean it like that." I kept my tone even. "You said it clearly." Her face tightened. "So you're punishing me?" I shook my head once. "No, I'm responding." She tried to step closer. "You're really going to throw us away?" I looked at her calmly. "You threw it away at that table." I just stopped picking it up. The softness fell off her face like a mask. "You're acting like you're perfect," she snapped. "Like you've never embarrassed me." I answered, "I never tried to make you small to make myself big." Zarya scoffed. "You're being dramatic." I watched her flip between apology and attack, searching for what would work. Then she landed on what she thought was leverage. "Fine," she said coldly. "If you walk away, Don't come crying when you realize you can't do better than me. Her voice sharpened. I can replace you. I stared at her and said quietly, then replace me. She left, slamming the car door hard enough to echo down the street. I didn't chase. I sat down at my desk, opened my laptop, and worked. Not because I was heartless, because I was focused. That night, I reviewed everything connected to Zaria's prototype: repositories, accounts, permissions, hosting, access tokens. Clean systems don't allow unclear ownership. I had asked her for paperwork more than once. She avoided it every time. So I documented my contributions, saved copies of messages, and separated what belonged to me from what belonged to her. Quietly, legally, the same way I do everything that matters, carefully. The next day, she called from a different number. Her tone was sweet again. Kamini, can we talk? I answered calmly. Talk about what? She sighed. I'm stressed. I didn't sleep. My family is on me. I said, that's not my problem. She went quiet, then tried another angle. You know I love you. I replied, love doesn't look like public humiliation. She exhaled sharply. So you're really going to do this right before my pitch? There was again. Not remorse. Timing. Outcome. Control. 2 days later, I heard through someone I trusted, an old friend who knew one of Zaria's friends, that her pitch meeting didn't go the way she planned. Not because anyone canceled her. Not because of drama. Because investors ask basic questions. Who owns the product? Who built the tech? Where are the agreements? What's the paper trail? Zaria had the charm, the slides, the confidence. But when they pushed for due diligence, she had smoke where she needed structure. And smoke doesn't hold value when money is on the line. It doesn't have to be loud to be devastating. Quiet questions can destroy a fantasy. That night Zaria called again, voice shaking. Kamini, I need you, she said, no greeting. I need you to just help me. Just this one thing. I leaned back in my chair. Help you do what? She whispered, they want access. They want proof. They want to know the tech is real. I said, it is real. She swallowed. Then give it to me. I paused, then asked calmly, what do I get? She snapped, Kamini, don't do this. I answered, don't do what? Ask for respect. She tried to cry. Then she tried to threaten. If you ruin this for me, I cut in gently. I'm not ruining anything. You built this on disrespect and assumption. She hissed, you're being petty. I exhaled. Zaria, you confuse my patience for permission. Silence. Then her voice turned small. So you're just going to watch me fail? I replied, I'm going to watch you face reality. She said, after everything I did for you? I answered, name one thing you did for me that didn't come with a price. She couldn't. I didn't sabotage her. I didn't delete anything. I didn't crash her dreams. I simply refused to hand over what I owned without proper agreements, something I had requested while we were together. I offered one clean option: a written contract, clear compensation for my work, clear ownership boundaries. Zaria scoffed like paperwork was an insult. You're disgusting, she spit. You were never on my level. I listened without reacting. Then I said calmly, and yet you're calling me. She hung up. The next morning, she sent a long text blaming me for everything. I didn't respond. The fallout didn't hit her publicly. It hit her privately, where pride can't hide behind smile. Without the investor money she expected, she had to cut plans, a bigger workspace, paid ads, inventory orders she'd bragged about. She started calling people asking for short-term loans. She posted quotes about betrayal and people not supporting your vision. But she never once said, I was wrong. Her friends still backed her publicly, but behind the scenes, even they got tired. Because it's easy to cheer for someone's dream until they start asking you to fund it. Zaria had always relied on applause. Now she needed structure. She didn't have it. Meanwhile, my life got quieter in a good way. I returned the ring to the jeweler and accepted what I could get back. It wasn't about the money. It was about closing the loop. I moved my things out of the storage unit I'd been paying for, boxes I didn't even realize were mine until I looked closely. I changed my routines, went back to the gym, cooked more, slept better. At work, I kept my head down and delivered. When you stop pouring energy into chaos, you suddenly have a lot of energy. Peace is productive. Zaria tried one more time, weeks later. She showed up outside my building, wearing the face she used when she wanted sympathy. "Can we talk?" she asked quietly. I stepped outside, but didn't invite her in. She looked at me like she was seeing a stranger. "You really just cut me off," she said, wounded. I replied, "You cut me down in front of people. This is just distance." She swallowed. "I was under pressure." I said, "You were under pressure the first time you called me classless too?" She flinched. "I didn't mean I held up my hand. You meant it enough to say it." She tried to pivot into romance, like the good memories could erase the damage. "You remember National Harbor?" she whispered. "You remember how we laughed?" I nodded once. "I remember." Her eyes shined like she was about to land the moment. "Then why are you doing this?" My voice stayed calm. "Because I also remember the part where you refused to apologize. The part where you checked my phone like I was a suspect. The part where you threatened to replace me. The part where you used your family like a weapon. That's not love. That's management." Zaria's face hardened. "You always think you're smarter than everybody." I replied, "No. I just finally listened." She took a step back like she was offended. "So what, you're perfect now," she snapped. "You're just going to go find some girl who worships you?" I said, "I'm going to find peace. Whether that includes someone else is secondary." Zaria laughed bitterly. "You'll regret this." I looked at her, steady. I regretted staying. That line hit her harder than anything loud could have. Her jaw tightened. "You're cold." I answered, "No. I'm done." She stared at me like she wanted me to chase her. When I didn't, she turned and walked away fast, shoulders stiff. After that, she tried subtler attacks. Mutuals, indirect posts, rumors. Someone told me Zaria said I was insecure and cheap. Another person said she claimed I stole her idea. I didn't defend myself to people who weren't there. People who know me know I don't move messy. And people who didn't know me weren't my concern. I focused on what I could control. I saved messages. I kept receipts. I protected my work and my name quietly. Then one day I got a message from an unfamiliar number, a potential business partner of hers, asking who owned the prototype. I answered with truth and documentation. Calm, clean, undeniable. That was the moment her karma fully matured. Not a public scene. Something worse for someone like Zaria, a private shift in how people trusted her. When investors and partners start asking questions, the charm stops working. Zaria could sell confidence all day, but she couldn't sell clarity she didn't have. She began losing opportunities quietly, calls not returned, meetings postponed, emails lost. The same way she used to dismiss my feelings, casually, quietly, without apology. The world returned her own energy in a language she couldn't argue with. And because she refused accountability, she didn't learn. She just blamed everyone else and kept spiraling. I didn't celebrate it. I didn't gloat. I didn't send messages like, "I told you so." That's not my style. My satisfaction came from something simpler. The sound of my own mind being quiet again. I could sit in my apartment and hear nothing but my refrigerator hum and the soft keys of my keyboard. No tension, no traps, no walking on eggshells. I realized I'd been surviving emotional weather every day with her. Sunny one hour, storm the next, always trying to predict it. Without her, my life wouldn't have been so exciting. It became stable. And stability is underrated until you've lived without it. One Saturday, I drove to Baltimore to take my mom to dinner, something I kept postponing when I was tangled up in Zaria's schedule. My mom looked at me across the table and said, "You look rested." I smiled. "I am." She didn't press for details. Black mothers don't always need the whole story. She just nodded slowly and said, "Peace looks good on you." That sentence sat in my chest like a blessing. On the drive home, I thought about how Zaria used to say I was stable like it was an insult. I finally understood. Stability is only boring to people who live off chaos. Months passed. At work, I got promoted. More responsibility, better pay, leadership track. I didn't post it. I didn't announce it. I told my close friends and kept moving. One night, I ran into Janelle at a coffee shop in downtown Silver Spring. She looked surprised to see me calm, clean, unbothered. She tried to smile. "Hey, stranger," she said. "Zaria said you've been difficult." I sipped my coffee. "Zaria says a lot." Janelle tilted her head. "So you really left her?" I nodded once. I left disrespect. She didn't have a comeback for that. She just blinked and looked away. The funny part is Zarya still believed she was the prize even after the consequences. That's the kind of confidence that isn't confidence, it's denial. I heard she started dating someone else quickly, someone flashier, someone she could post, someone who didn't ask questions. But the pattern doesn't disappear when the person changes. The pattern just finds a new target. And eventually, charm runs into reality again. That was Zarya's cycle. Shine, control, dismiss, threaten, then act shocked when people stop cooperating. I used to think if I loved her enough, she'd soften. I learned love doesn't fix entitlement. Boundaries do. One evening, almost a year later, Zarya sent a message from another number. No greeting, just a sentence. "You ruined my life." I stared at it for a long moment, then typed a reply I never sent. I didn't owe her more conversation. I blocked the number and went back to what I was doing. The truth is, I didn't ruin anything. I simply stopped letting her use me as the floor she stood on. Her life shook because it was built on disrespect and assumption. When the support beams leave, a weak structure reveals itself. That isn't sabotage. That's gravity. I've replayed that restaurant moment more times than I'd like to admit. Not because I miss her, but because I still feel the heat of the humiliation. The way everyone waited for me to react. The way she smiled like I was supposed to take it. The way she used a room full of people to stamp me with a word that wasn't true. But every time I replay it, the ending is the same. Me standing up without shaking, placing the ring down without drama, walking away without begging. That's the part one hold on to. Not the insult, my exit. My quiet refusal to accept a role I didn't audition for. I learned what disrespect looks like when it's dressed up in honesty. It looks like refusing to apologize. It looks like checking your phone and calling it intuition. It looks like talking down on your goals while expecting you to fund theirs. It looks like calling you names during conflict, then saying you're too sensitive for caring. It looks like public criticism framed as just jokes. It looks like threats, "I'll replace you," said with a smile. And the most dangerous version of it looks like charm in public and contempt in private. That contrast is how people get trapped. I also learned what moving smart looks like. It's not screaming. It's not revenge speeches. It's not trying to win the breakup. It's tightening your boundaries, documenting what matters, separating your resources, and choosing silence when silence protects your dignity. It's answering bait with calm truth. It's understanding that some people don't change because you love them. They change because consequences force them to. And if consequences don't force them, they don't change at all. The point isn't to punish them. The point is to stop volunteering for pain. I didn't leave Zarya to teach her a lesson. I left to save myself. Sometimes I think about the early days, Waffle House, kitchen dancing, her laughing in my shoulder, and I don't feel hate. I feel clarity. The good moments were real, but they weren't a contract that required me to endure the bad. Love doesn't mean tolerating humiliation. Engagement doesn't mean accepting control. And being calm doesn't mean being weak. If anything, my calm was the strongest thing in that whole relationship, because it's what kept me from becoming ugly just to survive her ugliness. I can admit I loved her and still admit she was wrong for me. Both can be true. I've dated since then, slowly, carefully. I pay attention now to how someone treats me when they're stressed, how they talk about other people, whether they can apologize without turning it into a debate. I listen for the small dismissals. I watch for the jokes that only go one direction. I don't explain my worth anymore. If someone needs me to prove I'm worthy of basic respect, they're not ready for me. I'm not looking for perfection. I'm looking for kindness and accountability, two things Zarya treated like weaknesses. Now I know better. Now I move better. And if I ever sit at another table where someone tries to make me small for laughs, I already know what I'll do, because I've done it before. I'll stand up quietly and leave them with the version of me they deserved, my absence. If this story hit home, share it with someone who keeps explaining their worth to the wrong person. Subscribe for more real, calm comeback stories, where karma doesn't need noise, it needs paperwork and boundaries. And comment absence if you believe the strongest revenge is walking away without begging. The end.